The Man in the Hat. My mom always said our house carried bad energy. It was her catchphrase whenever something weird happened. That's why what happens, happens. It's not normal. She said it like someone who knows something they shouldn't. At first, I didn't believe her. I thought it was just superstition. Motherly tales to explain the unexplainable. I was wrong, terribly wrong. I was very young when it all started. Mom tells me that as a kid, I would constantly talk about a man in a hat. I told her he was always watching me from the shadows of the room. A tall figure, motionless, with a wide-brimmed hat hiding his face. I don't remember any of it. Maybe it's better that way. Years later, my sister, Vecchi, started having night terrors. But these weren't normal nightmares. She'd scream, cry, and most disturbingly, vomit. Not a little. An unnatural amount for her tiny body. Mom tried to wake her, splashing water, shouting, but nothing. The next day, Vecchi remembered nothing. This happened every damn night. Day, my wife, once confessed that she saw a shadow moving in the room while awake. Not a flicker, not an illusion, a slow, deliberate shift, as if it wanted her to notice. Later, during sleep paralysis, it appeared again. Much closer this time. So close. She could feel its breath. But one night, Mom decided to sleep over. Everything got worse. She woke up to the sensation of something climbing onto the bed. The mattress sank beneath it. It was moving toward her feet, and then she saw it. A short, hairy figure, silently advancing. Vecchi's dog, small but fierce, raised its hackles and growled with a rage I had never seen before. Teeth bared, gaze fixed on the same spot Mom had seen. That thing. Days later, Day told me another unsettling story. Vecchi's dog was barking, growling, whining, staring under Dad's bed. Nothing there. Nothing any of us could see. Recently, I decided to test myself. I entered Dad's room, switched off all the lights, and stood in silence. The air felt heavy, charged, like the walls were pressing against me. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination. A trick of the mind, influenced by all the stories I'd grown up hearing. I wasn't afraid. Or at least, that's what I thought. Later, I got into an argument with my sister. It wasn't just a fight. It felt like someone or something was pushing me to say the cruelest words. To scream in a rage that didn't feel like my own. Like my voice wasn't mine, and the sentences were already planted in my mouth before I spoke. When it was over, I felt empty, guilty, as if those minutes I hadn't been myself. That night, trying to sleep, I remembered something Mom always said when we were alone. Never stare into the mirror. Alone. And in the dark. I never asked why. That night, I did. I stood in front of the hall mirror, lights off, my reflection barely visible in the dimness. At first, I only saw myself. Then, I realized my breathing wasn't in sync with the reflections. When I inhaled, it exhaled. Its shoulders rose a fraction of a second after mine. I couldn't take it anymore. I turned on the light. I was alone, or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. What we didn't know was that this was only day one. The night after the argument with Vecchi, the house fell into a different kind of silence. Not the normal silence of everyone asleep, but that heavy, almost physical silence that presses against you. The kind that doesn't feel empty, like it's waiting. A silence born not from absence of noise, but from something listening. I told myself it was all in my head. Autosuggestion. The mind, alone in the dark, inventing shapes to fill the emptiness. But when I switched off the lights and stood still, the air changed. It got thick, sticky. Breathing felt wrong, like I wasn't inhaling air, but something heavier, older, rotten. And then I remembered everything I'd always tried to ignore. The man in the hat Mom said I saw as a kid. The one I don't remember. The suffocating, labored breathing I felt over me at 3 in the morning, alone. The static noise Mom and I heard, even when the TVs were off. Footsteps in the hallway, always at the same time, same place. Vecchi's night terrors, the impossible vomiting, the shadow looming over her, the pale woman chasing me in a dream, and the sudden fall of clothes from the closet when I woke. The shadow Day saw moving while awake, her sleep paralysis, with something watching from the corner. The crouching animal Mom saw climbing on her bed, the dog growling at something we couldn't see. All of it didn't fit any ghost story. This wasn't a spirit. It was older, smarter, something that should not exist. My eyes, almost instinctively, drifted to the dark hallway. I saw nothing, but I felt it. A pressure, like my head was underwater. And a smell, not normal rot. Metallic, like old blood, damp earth, and something else that made my stomach churn and sweat break out cold. Then, the house changed. The walls moved. A few inches. Literally. Shadows thickened in corners, like they had weight. And the darkest shadow moved. First, the outline of the hat. Perfect, black, cutting against nothing. Then the shoulders, a tall silhouette, taller than the ceiling. It didn't move like a human. Slithered, jerked, impossible angles. I didn't blink. I knew if I did, it would be closer, and it was, in an instant, a meter from my face. No eyes, but I felt it watching. No mouth, but it smiled. A smile inside my head, damp, slipping into my thoughts. I saw memories that weren't mine. Vecchi vomiting, shadow over her chest. Day lying with Cielo, watched from the corner. The dog growling under the bed at something dark and furry. Myself arguing with Vecchi, but now I knew it wasn't me. The light flickered, not failing, but being consumed. The clock ticked, slowly, time bending. It touched my shoulder, its skin cold, but not ice. Dry chill, like touching darkness itself. And then I heard it. Not with my ears, but inside my skull. Never be alone again. In the dark. It wasn't a warning. It was a condemnation. I don't remember falling, only waking during the day, with black marks on my arm, like fingers. Since that night, I'm never alone, even when I am. It all started shortly before 3:00 a.m. I remember looking at the kitchen clock. 2. 58. Oh, maybe it was 3:15. No, I was sure it was 2:58. Although now that I think about it, I don't even remember ever owning that clock. That's when I heard it, the first noise. A buzzing sound, like TV static searching for a signal, except every TV was off. I think it wasn't steady. It came from everywhere at once. Walls, floor, my own chest. It felt like it was waiting for me to close my eyes. Then, footsteps, heavy footsteps, made of old wood. The house floor is ceramic, always has been. Yet that night, it creaked, like rotten wood, damp, alive. Vetchi screamed. I ran to her room. I remember entering, but I also remember standing in the doorway. In both moments, she was vomiting. Only in one, she was asleep. In the other, she was staring at me. Dry smile. The corner of her room wasn't where it should have been. It sloped inward, like a tunnel. Day came out of the bathroom, her skin damp, but not from water. She said something had breathed on her neck. No, not breathed. It was warm, icy, both at once. As if the air couldn't decide. The dogs started barking, but they weren't barking at me, or anything visible. They were staring at air, or what looked like air. Something stuck to the wall, a shadow darker than darkness, and it seemed to smile. The kitchen was farther away than it should have been. The hallway, longer. Doors curved inward like gaping mouths. Door frames crooked, damp, alive. And then I saw him, the man in the hat. My man in the hat from my childhood. Only this time, there were more, many more. Tall, motionless figures, hats hiding faces. They didn't move, but every time I blinked, they were closer. I told you, my mother whispered behind me. He's always been here. I didn't remember her coming in, or speaking in that deep, almost masculine tone. I turned. She was standing. Her feet weren't touching the floor. The lights flickered. Every flash. Something in the room changed. A crooked painting. A door that wasn't there before. A crack in the ceiling. Like an eye. The clocks. They were turning backward. The hands stretched, bent. One pierced through the glass like flesh. Day screamed, hands over her face. When she pulled them away, her eyes were gone. No blood. Only two black holes, skin grown around them. The smell of iron filled the house. It came from the walls, oozing thick black liquid, bubbling like boiling tar. Vetchi appeared again. Behind me. No. In front of me. No. The corner. Her face kept changing. Sometimes hers. Sometimes mine. Sometimes nothing at all. The dog barked at the hallway mirror. I went closer. Saw my reflection. But it wasn't mine. Me. With a hat. And the shadow behind it, smiling. I didn't blink. The reflection did. Then, all the doors opened, even the ones that weren't there before. Don't look, a voice said. But I looked, and I saw what I shouldn't have seen. I woke up in my room. It was daytime. No. Nighttime. No. The sun was out, but the shadows were wrong too long, stretched like it was already midnight. The dogs were barking. All of them. At once. In the other room, staring at a wall. No. Looking. Inside. The wall. The shadow had no shape until it began to stretch. And then the outlines appeared. Hats. Hats that shouldn't be there. 1, 2, 4, 12, 43. I don't know why that number made my head hurt. It wasn't just one. It wasn't just them. There were too many. Too many for the walls to contain. Some crawled. Some stayed still. All of them knew I was watching. Then they stopped. Absolute silence. I could hear my heart. I could hear yours. Yes, yours. Then everything fell. I didn't hear a bang. The ground tilted, as if the house had dropped from infinity. The colors shifted. The air tasted wrong. The walls stretched upward, disappearing into a blackness with no ceiling. Alien memories invaded me. Cities that never existed. Under red skies. Bells ringing underwater. Seas full of motionless bodies. But their shadows moved, and then I understood. They weren't ghosts. They weren't demons. They were a swarm. An extra-dimensional parasite. A collective consciousness that has lived in all worlds for eons until it consumed them. And now, us. We were the food. I turned. My family was there, or what was left of them. Vetchi's eyes, black, pupilless. Day smiled, but it wasn't his smile. A cheap imitation. Behind each of them, a shadow copy, a living negative. When I blinked, the copies were closer. When I stopped, still closer. I heard footsteps on the roof. The house doesn't have an attic. It doesn't have an attic. It doesn't have an attic. Yes, it does. The hairy thing crawled down the hall. Beside it, the man in the hat. Only now, it wasn't a man. It was a mass, stretching beyond walls, touching places that shouldn't exist. I knew I'd seen it before I was born. In that place where you don't dream, where you don't breathe. The clock stopped at 3 a.m. and also 2:59 p.m. and also had no hands. A child's voice whispered, "Time doesn't live here." I didn't know him, except he called my real name. The walls folded in on themselves. The doors led to the same room, over and over. You could go out and end up deeper inside. I blinked, and I saw them. More hats, more smiles. They didn't hide. They multiplied. And then I understood. There is no escape. There never was. What I call my life is just a small room inside their world. We are not being invaded. We have always been inside them. The light went out, and before it did, I saw my reflection in the window. Me, with a hat, smiling. Not me.